The crack of the slap echoed through the marble-floored boutique like a gunshot in a library, freezing every shopper in their tracks. Matthew's head snapped to the side, his cheek blooming red under the fluorescent lights of Fifth Avenue's most exclusive fashion haven. And for a split second, the world tilted bags of silk scarves tumbling from his arms onto the polished floor. You think you can come in here flaunting your deviance like it's normal? The store manager snarled, his face twisted in ugly triumph, spittle flying as he loomed over Matthew, who knelt there, stunned, tasting the copper tang of blood from a split lip. Ryan lunged forward from the accessory display where he'd been browsing cufflinks, his heart slamming against his ribs like a caged animal. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he roared, shoving between them, his broad shoulders blocking the manager's view as he dropped to one knee beside Matthew, fingers trembling as they brushed the swelling mark on his lover's face. The boutique, Verve Threads, crown jewel of the East Coast fashion empire, erupted into chaos. Gasps from designer-clad socialites, phones whipping out to capture the scandal. A teenage sales associate stammering into her walkie-talkie for security that was already too late. Matthew blinked up at Ryan, his green eyes, usually sharp with the quiet confidence of a man who'd built an empire from nothing, now glassy with shock. 20 years in New York had hardened him to the city's barbs, the sideways glances at pride parades, the whispered slurs in boardrooms. But this was visceral, public, a violation that stripped him bare in the one place he'd poured his soul into creating. He was 42, the invisible architect behind Verve's glittering facade, a reclusive billionaire who'd clawed his way up from a queen's tenement, every seam and stitch a testament to his unyielding vision. And yet here he was, reduced to a spectacle because he'd dared to kiss Ryan goodbye at the curb, a soft brush of lips that lingered too long for the manager's narrow tastes. "Get out!" The manager, Greg Harlan, a mid-level climber with a comb-over and a chip on his shoulder the size of Manhattan, barked, his voice cracking with false authority. "Both of you. We don't serve your kind here." The words hung heavy, laced with the poison of small-town bigotry Harlan had imported straight from his Ohio roots, despite the rainbow pins on half the staff's lanyards. Shoppers murmured, some nodding in uncomfortable agreement, others averting eyes, the air thick with the scent of Chanel No. 5 and unspoken complicity. Ryan's jaw clenched, his fists balling at his sides. At 35, he was the steady anchor to Matthew's storm, a landscape architect with calloused hands from Brooklyn Community Gardens, his Irish heritage showing in the freckles across his nose and the fire in his hazel eyes. They'd met 3 years ago at a rooftop fundraiser for queer youth shelters, Matthew's quiet philanthropy drawing Ryan like a moth to flame. What started as flirtatious banter over craft cocktails had bloomed into something profound. Lazy Sundays in their West Village brownstone, Ryan sketching garden plans while Matthew pored over fabric swatches, their bodies fitting together like puzzle pieces long separated. But now, that sanctuary felt miles away, shattered by this red-faced bully. Matthew rose slowly, dignity his armor, wiping blood from his lip with the back of his hand. "My kind?" he echoed, voice low and steady, laced with the faint Brooklyn edge he'd never fully shed. "The kind that built this place from the ground up? That dresses your wife and funds your bonus checks?" The words landed like velvet-wrapped grenades. But Harlan just laughed, a bark of derision that made Ryan's blood boil. "You're delusional, freak." "Security," Harlan snapped, gesturing wildly as 2 burly guards materialized from the stockroom, their faces masks of professional neutrality masking personal unease. One hesitated, eyes flicking to Matthew's disheveled Armani suit, the same line Verve had launched last season, tailored impeccably to his lean frame. Ryan pulled Matthew to his feet, arm wrapping protectively around his waist. "We're leaving," he growled, shooting daggers at Harlan. But this isn't over. They pushed through the gawking crowd, flashes from smartphones blinding them like paparazzi hounds. Outside, the November chill bit at Matthew's exposed skin. The city symphony of honking taxis and distant sirens, a cruel underscore to his humiliation. He leaned into Ryan's warmth, breath ragged, the sting on his cheek a dull throb compared to the ache in his chest. They hailed a cab in silence, sliding into the worn leather back seat as Manhattan blurred past. Ryan's hand never left Matthew's, thumb tracing soothing circles over knuckles white from clenching. "That son of a bitch," Ryan muttered finally, voice thick with rage. "I'll sew the chain into oblivion. Make him beg on the street." Matthew stared out the window, watching his reflection ghost across rain-slicked skyscrapers. The chain. His chain. Verve Threads wasn't just a business. It was his legacy, born from late nights sewing prototypes in a dingy garage, fueled by rejection letters and a fierce determination to create beauty for bodies like his, diverse, unapologetic, alive. He'd hidden his ownership behind layers of executives and NDAs, craving the anonymity to judge his creation on merit, not money. But now, exposure loomed like a storm cloud, threatening to upend everything. "No lawsuits," Matthew said softly, turning to meet Ryan's gaze. The cab's dim light softened the worry lines around Ryan's eyes, making him look younger, more vulnerable. "Not yet. I need to think." He leaned in, forehead pressing against Ryan's, inhaling the familiar scent of earth and aftershave. "Thank you for having my back. Always," Ryan whispered, sealing it with a gentle kiss that tasted of salt and promise. But as the cab pulled up to their brownstone, the weight settled heavier. Inside, under the glow of pendant lights, Matthew paced the living room, its walls lined with Ryan's sketches and Matthew's mood boards, visions of gardens entwined with couture dreams. Harlan's slap wasn't just physical. It was a fracture in the facade, a reminder that even in progressive New York, shadows of hate lingered. That night, sleep evaded them. Ryan tossed in silk sheets, replaying the scene, fists itching for retribution. Matthew lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin, mind racing through contingencies, anonymous tips to HR, quiet firings, or bolder, stepping into the light as owner, turning poison into power. By dawn, resolve hardened in his veins like setting concrete. Verve wasn't just threads. It was a statement, and he'd be damned if one bigot dimmed its shine. But betrayal simmered deeper. Harlan wasn't some rogue. He'd been mentored by Matthew's hand-picked regional director, a man Matthew trusted like family. How had the rot spread unchecked, as coffee brewed, filling the kitchen with bitter warmth? Ryan slid arms around Matthew from behind, chin resting on his shoulder. "Whatever you decide, I'm in. But don't let him break you." Matthew turned, cupping Ryan's face, thumbs brushing stubble. "He can't. Not when I have you." Their kiss deepened, bodies pressing close in a bid for solace, hands mapping familiar territories with urgent tenderness. Clothes shed like old skins, they tumbled to the rug, Ryan's mouth tracing the curve of Matthew's collarbone, eliciting gasps that drowned out the city's hum. It was reclamation, fierce, loving, a fuck you to the world in the most intimate way. Yet as they caught their breath, tangled in limbs and afterglow, Matthew's phone buzzed relentlessly. Texts from staff. Saw the video. You okay? Viral already. TikToks of the slap racking up views. Hashtags like Fifth Avenue hate exploding. The exposure he'd feared was here, unbidden, forcing his hand. By noon, Matthew sat at his desk in the home office, a converted sunroom overlooking their pocket garden, drafting an email to the board. No more hiding. He'd reveal himself, not as victim, but as victor. Ryan hovered nearby, sketching absent-mindedly, his presence a bomb. But doubt crept in. Would this shatter their quiet life? Expose Ryan to the glare he'd always shielded him from? The first call came from a reporter at Vogue. Mr. Hargrove, word on the street is you're the ghost behind Verve. Care to comment on the assault? Matthew's alias, Hargrove Enterprises, had held for years, but cracks showed. He hung up, pulse racing, and looked to Ryan. It's out. Ryan crossed the room in 2 strides, pulling him up into an embrace. Then own it. All of it. Their eyes locked, a silent vow amid the storm. But as Matthew nodded, steeling for the fight, he couldn't shake the chill. Harlan's slap had opened Pandora's box, and what flew out might change them forever. The boardroom at Verve's headquarters, a sleek glass tower piercing the midtown skyline, hummed with the low buzz of executives tapping stylus pens on iPads, their faces a mosaic of Botox-smooth concern and thinly veiled ambition. Matthew stood at the head of the obsidian conference table, his cheek still faintly bruised under concealer, a war paint of sorts that no amount of foundation could fully erase. He'd arrived unannounced, Ryan at his side like a sentinel, the two of them drawing stares from the C-suite sharks who'd only known Matthew as the consultant from Hargrove in terse emails and shadowy strategy sessions. Ladies and gentlemen, Matthew began, voice steady as the Hudson on a calm day, I'm not here as a ghost anymore. I'm Matthew Ellis, founder and sole owner of Verve Threads. And yesterday, one of your managers assaulted me in broad daylight because I dared to love openly in my store. Gasps rippled like wind through wheat. Elena Vasquez, the CFO, a sharp-eyed Latina in power heels who'd risen through merchandising, leaned forward, her gold hoop earrings catching the light. Matthew? The Matthew? Dios mío. Why hide it? Her tone was genuine, laced with the warmth of someone who'd benefited from his anonymous scholarships for design students back in her Bronx days. Across the table, Victor Lang, the regional director who'd greenlit Harlan's promotion, shifted uncomfortably, his tie suddenly too tight. This is unprecedented. The videos everywhere, stocks dipping 2 points already. Victor was 50-something, Silver Fox handsome with a Yale polish, but Matthew saw the flicker of guilt in his eyes. Victor had been his first hire, a mentor turned confidant, privy to whispers of Matthew's identity over late-night scotch in hidden speakeasies. Ryan stood by the window, arms crossed, his casual chinos and button-down a stark contrast to the suits, grounding Matthew with a subtle nod. He'd insisted on coming, to remind you you're not alone in this snake pit. Now, as murmurs swelled, Ryan's presence was the anchor keeping Matthew from drifting into rage. The presentation screen flickered to life behind him, clips of the slap, intercut with Verve's origin story. Grainy photos of a young Matthew, barely 20, hunched over a Singer machine in a floodlit garage. Rainbow flags pinned to cinderblock walls. Verve was born from exclusion, Matthew continued. his Brooklyn lilt creeping in for emphasis. I couldn't find clothes that fit my body, my life, without compromise. So I made them. For every queer kid dreaming in the heartland, every drag queen owning the stage, every couple like. He glanced at Ryan, softening. Like Ryan and me, stealing moments in a world that still stares. Applause broke tentative, Elena leading with sharp claps that echoed off the glass walls. But Victor cleared his throat, standing. Admirable, Matt. Truly. But Harlan. He's a good soldier. Aggressive sales tactics. Sure. But this? A lapse. We'll handle it internally. Suspension. Sensitivity training. Ryan snorted, the sound cutting through like gravel. Head swiveled. The outsider had spoken. Matthew held up a hand, silencing the room. Internally, Victor, you promoted him knowing his views. I saw the emails, jokes about the agenda in staff chats. This isn't a lapse. It's a cancer. The room tensed, air conditioning whispering like a held breath. Victor's face flushed, a vein pulsing at his temple. You're blowing this out of proportion. One incident doesn't tank a legacy. Matthew's laugh was bitter, echoing his garage days of bootstrapping loans and bigoted landlords. One incident? Try one too many. I built Verve to be a beacon, not a blind eye. He tapped his tablet, projecting Harlan's personnel file. Complaints buried, DI training skipped. A pattern of whispers from queer staffers too scared to speak up. Elena's eyes narrowed. We've got lawsuits stacking already, ACLUs sniffing around. And the board? They want blood or bailouts. Then give them truth, Matthew said, leaning on the table, his bruised cheek a badge in the harsh light. Fire Harlan. Publicly. And overhaul HR with real teeth, anonymous reporting, equity audits. Or I walk, and you watch the empire crumble. Murmurs turned to nods. Victor sinking back into his chair, defeated. As the meeting adjourned in a flurry of handshakes and hurried calls, Ryan pulled Matthew aside in the hallway, into an alcove overlooking the churning streets below. You were a force in there, he murmured, hands sliding up Matthew's arms, thumbs pressing into tense muscles. Proud doesn't cover it, Matthew exhaled, the adrenaline crash hitting like a wave. Felt like jumping without a net. Their lips met, quick and fierce, a stolen breath amid corporate corridors. But as they parted, Victor approached, expression stormy. Matt, a word, privately. Ryan bristled, but Matthew waved him off. Go grab coffee. I'll be fine. Lies, perhaps, but trust was the thread holding this fragile. In Victor's corner office, plush with Eames chairs and skyline views, confrontation brewed. You hid this from me, Victor accused, pouring scotch despite the hour, the amber liquid glinting like accusation. All these years, playing puppeteer. Was I just a pawn? Matthew perched on the desk's edge, legs swinging like in their early days. You were family, Vic. I hid to protect it all from vultures, from this. He gestured vaguely at his face. But you let Harlan slide. Why? Victor's laugh was hollow, glass clinking as he swirled his drink. Because results. He tripled Q3 sales in Soho. And yeah, maybe I turned a blind eye to the bullshit. Thought it was harmless, old-school grit. He met Matthew's gaze, vulnerability cracking his facade. But seeing that video gutted me. You're like a son, Matt, I failed you. The admission hung, raw and unexpected. Matthew's throat tightened. Victor had been the father figure he'd lost to AIDS in the 90s, pulling him from despair with job offers and quiet counsel. Betrayal stung, but so did forgiveness's pull. Then fix it, Matthew said softly. Start with Harlan. And yourself step down from oversight. Heal. Victor nodded, eyes glistening. For you, anything. They clasped hands. The scotch forgotten, pact sealed in silence. Downstairs, Ryan waited in the lobby, 2 lattes steaming in to-go cups. All good? He asked, handing one over, fingers lingering. Better than. Matthew sipped, the foam mustache drawing a grin from Ryan. They stepped into the elevator, alone at last, bodies gravitating until backs pressed against mirrored walls. God, I need you, Matthew breathed, pulling Ryan close, mouths crashing in a kiss that tasted of espresso and exhaustion. The descent was a blur of wandering hands, nips at necks, Ryan's knee nudging between thighs. By the chime of the ground floor, they were flushed, disheveled, laughing breathlessly as doors slid open to the bustle. Dinner, Ryan suggested, hailing a cab. Somewhere low-key. No empires tonight, Matthew agreed, sliding in beside him, head on Ryan's shoulder as traffic crawled. But his phone lit up Harlan. Via anonymous leak to TMZ, Ellis is a fraud. Verve's going down. The betrayal deepened. Victor's promise. Already tested. That evening, in a dim village bistro, candlelight danced across Ryan's face as he twirled pasta, oblivious for a moment to the storm. Remember our first date? He mused, foot hooking Matthew's under the table. You spilled wine on my sketchbook, then redrew the whole thing better. Matthew chuckled, the memory a lifeline. And you called me a control freak. Their eyes met, heat simmering beneath words. But as dessert arrived, tiramisu dusted with cocoa, alerts pinged, Verve boycott trending, shares plummeting. Ryan's brow furrowed. Talk to me. Matthew laid it bare, the leak, the fear of losing it all. Ryan listened, then reached across, covering his hand. Then fight smarter. Use the slap as fuel. Go public, your story, our story. Make them see the man, not the mogul. Inspiration struck like lightning. Back home, under the garden's string lights, Matthew drafted a video, raw, unscripted, him and Ryan on camera. I'm Matthew Ellis. This is Ryan O'Connor, the love of my life. Yesterday, hate tried to silence us. Today, we rise. Filmed in their kitchen, hands clasped, tears real. It went viral by midnight, shares surging as allies amplified. But dawn brought Harlan's counterpunch, a press conference, firing back with lies of fabricated drama for clout. The climax loomed, confrontation inevitable. Matthew rose, resolve ironclad, Ryan's arms his fortress. Together, Ryan asked, voice husky. Always. The press conference unfolded in Verve's flagship atrium like a gladiatorial arena, crystal chandeliers casting fractured light on a sea of microphones and camera lenses, reporters jostling like sharks scenting chum. Harlan stood at the podium, flanked by a sleazy lawyer in a shiny suit, his comb-over slicked back with overconfidence. Verve Threads is a family brand, he boomed, voice amplified to godlike proportions. Built on values, not agendas. Mr. Ellis's claims are a desperate bid for attention. Slander from a man grasping at relevance. Matthew watched from the wings, concealed by velvet curtains, Ryan's hand a vice on his forearm. The bruise had faded to yellow, but the fury burned fresh. Last night's video had rallied supporters, queer icons retweeting, celebrities pledging boycotts on Harlan's toxic empire. Yet doubt gnawed. What if the truth drowned in noise? Ryan leaned in, breath warm against his ear. He's flailing. One push, and he topples. As Harlan fielded softball questions, is diversity training mandatory? Will heads roll? Matthew's phone vibrated. Elena, texting boards with you. Go time. Heart pounding. He straightened his lapels. The fabric a custom verve weave soft as a lover's touch. Ryan squeezed his hand once. Fierce. Love you. Break him. Stepping into the glare. Matthew approached the podium like a specter materializing, the crowd parting in stunned silence. Harlan faltered mid-sentence, eyes widening in recognition. You, he sputtered, but Matthew's voice cut through, calm as a scalpel. Mr. Harlan, care to explain why you assaulted your employer? The atrium exploded, flashes popping, shouts overlapping. Security tensed, but Elena's nod held them back. Harlan recovered, sneering. Employer? You're a nobody playing dress-up. Matthew smiled, cold and cutting, pulling a folder from his briefcase, Harlan's file, annotated with emails, witness statements, a timeline of ignored complaints. Nobody? I signed your paychecks for 5 years. This. He held up a photo, projected instantly on the atrium screens. Is you? Last Pride. Posting anti-gay memes from the company account. Deleted, but not forgotten. Gasps swelled to a roar. Harlan's lawyer interjected. Slander. Will sue. But Matthew pressed on, voice rising with the passion of a man unveiling his heart. Verve isn't your playground, Greg. It's a sanctuary for the kid I was hiding sketches under my bed because Dad called them fairy shit. For Ryan, he turned, beckoning him forward. Ryan emerging strong and unyielding, who designs green spaces where love can breathe free. You slapped more than my face. You slapped every dream stitched into these walls. Ryan joined him, shoulder to shoulder, their unity a thunderclap. The crowd ate it up, phones capturing the moment, live streams surging. Harlan blanched, sweat beading on his brow. This is a setup. He's lying. Am I? Matthew countered, tapping his phone. Audio played. Harlan's own voice from a leaked staff call. Keep the fruits in the back, away from real customers. The atrium fell deathly quiet, then erupted in outrage. Reporters surged, questions flying like arrows. Harlan backed away, lawyer dragging him toward the exit, but not before Matthew's final barb. You're fired. Effective now. And Verve? We're just getting started. As chaos reigned, Matthew and Ryan retreated to a service elevator, adrenaline crashing into elation. Doors closing, Ryan pinned him against the wall, mouths fusing in a kiss that was victory and vindication, teeth nipping, hands roaming with desperate hunger. You were magnificent, Ryan gasped, foreheads touching as the car descended. The way you owned that room. Matthew's laugh bubbled up, shaky with release. Felt like puking. But seeing his face, worth it. They spilled into the loading dock. Cool air a slap of reality. But hand in hand, they walked the alley to their waiting car, The city there's again. Backlash hit fast. Harlan's allies, conservative outlets, pounced, spinning tales of woke overreach, boycotts fizzling into flames. But Verve's core roared back. Staff walkouts in solidarity, designers flooding socials with slapback campaigns, rainbow threads selling out overnight. Victor called that night, voice contrite over speakerphone as Ryan plated steak in their kitchen. Harlan's out. Suing him for defamation. You were right, Matt, about everything. Forgiven? Matthew asked, slicing into rare meat, juice pooling like blood money. Working on it. Therapy. The works. A pause. Then softer. Proud of you, son. The word hit like Harlan's palm. Painful. Healing. Hanging up, Matthew found Ryan watching him, eyes soft with that unwavering light. Dinner can wait, Ryan said, setting forks aside, pulling Matthew toward the stairs. Their bedroom was a haven of exposed brick and gauzy curtains, the king bed rumpled from mornings tangled in sheets. Ryan undressed him slowly, reverent, fingers tracing the fading bruise, lips following like absolution. You're beautiful, he whispered, easing Matthew down, bodies aligning in that perfect, wordless rhythm. It was slow this time, exploratory, Ryan's mouth mapping scars from old fights, Matthew's hands cradling Ryan's head as gasps turned to moans. Climax built like a symphony, cresting in shudders and sighs, afterglow wrapping them in quiet intimacy. Curled together, Ryan traced patterns on Matthew's chest. What's next? Empire saved. Now what? Matthew pondered, staring at shadows dancing from the garden lamp. Expand. More stores, more stories. And us, a life beyond boardrooms. Maybe that cabin in the Catskills you've been sketching. Ryan's grin lit the dark. Deal. But first, sleep. Heroes need rest. Yet dawn cracked with crisis. Emails flooded. A major investor pulling out, citing reputational risk. Victor's fix hadn't stuck. The rot ran deeper. Matthew rose early, coffee in hand, pacing the garden as dew clung to Ryan's herb pots. Calling Elena, he learned the worst. The investor was Harlan's uncle, a textile baron with leverage. We fight, Elena urged, her fire matching his. Counteroffer. Public audit. Transparency wins hearts. Ryan joined him, mug steaming, wrapping a blanket around shivering shoulders despite the mild fall air. Or pivot. Turn Verve into a co-op, staff ownership. Cut the fat cats loose. The idea sparked, brilliant in simplicity. By noon, Matthew convened a virtual town hall for all 500 employees, Ryan moderating from beside him. Verve's mine. But it shouldn't be, he announced to pixelated faces from LA warehouses to Chicago showrooms. Let's make it ours. Votes open now. Affirmatives poured in overwhelming. Betrayal from the top became revolution from the ranks. Harlan's uncle folded under pressure. Shares stabilizing as news broke. Verve goes worker-owned. A queer revolution in fashion. But personal shadows lingered. That evening, a knock echoed Victor, bottle of aged bourbon in hand, eyes red-rimmed. Came to apologize properly. He stepped inside, awkward in their domestic glow, Ryan offering a stiff beer truce. Over drinks in the living room, stories spilled. Victor's own closet days in the 80s, losing lovers to silence and sickness. I became what I hated, blind to protect the machine. Tears fell, unashamed. Matthew listened, Ryan's hand on his knee a steady pulse. "We all slip," Matthew said finally. "Rise by helping each other up." Victor left lighter, hugs exchanged like mended fences. Alone, Ryan pulled Matthew close on the couch. "Your mercy incarnate." Their kiss turned languid, bodies shifting until Ryan straddled him, grinding slow, breaths mingling. It was affirmation, passion without pressure, love's quiet roar. As weeks blurred, Verve transformed, pop-up pride ateliers, scholarships tripling, Harlan's lawsuit dismissed in a settlement that funded youth programs. Matthew and Ryan stole weekends away, hiking Adirondack trails, Ryan's hand in his a constant. But climax brewed subtly, a gala for the co-op launch, where old ghosts might resurface. The gala shimmered like a fever dream in the Metropolitan Museum's Great Hall. Egyptian temple facades draped in Verve's signature silks, cascades of indigo and crimson evoking sunsets over the Nile. Ironic given the modern pharaoh rising from ashes. Matthew navigated the throng in a tailored velvet jacket, Ryan at his elbow in slim wool trousers that hugged his athletic frame, their entrance drawing whispers and clinking champagne flutes. 3 months post-slap, Verve's rebirth pulsed here, worker-owned, scandal-scarred, stronger a phoenix in sequins. "Look at them," Ryan murmured, nodding to clusters of designers and donors, faces alight with purpose. "You're doing." His hand brushed Matthew's lower back, a subtle claim amid the swirl, sending sparks up his spine. "Our," Matthew corrected, stealing a sip from Ryan's glass, lips lingering on the rim. The co-op vote had been seismic, empowering staff, diluting old power blocks, but vulnerabilities lingered. Tonight's auction would fund global expansions, but rumors swirled of Harlan lurking in the shadows, his defamation suit a specter despite dismissal. Elena swept in, resplendent in a Verve gown of layered tulle, air-kissing cheeks. "Bids are hot. That prototype jacket of yours? 6 figures already." She eyed Ryan appreciatively. "And you, keeping our boy grounded?" Ryan grinned, arm looping Matthew's waist. "Someone's gotta." Laughter bubbled, but tension coiled as Victor approached, dapper in pinstripes, his new therapist-mandated poise evident. "Matt, the board, Co-op Council, approves the expansion blueprint." "Asia next." Matthew nodded, clinking glasses. "Seoul and Tokyo. Fabrics with stories, sustainable, queer-crafted." Talk flowed easy, old wounds scabbing, but Ryan tensed beside him, gaze fixed on the entrance. Harlan. He slunk in like a bad sequel, uninvited, in a ill-fitting tux that screamed desperation. A blonde on his arm, trophy or shield. Eyes locking on Matthew, he weaved through, voice oily. "Ellis. Congrats on the pity party." Still playing victim, the hall's hum dipped, nearby heads turning. Ryan stepped forward, chest out. "Private property. Asshole." "Leave." Harlan smirked, undeterred. "Free speech. Pretty boy. Or does your sugar daddy own that too?" The slur landed like acid, but Matthew held firm, pulse thundering. "What do you want? Greg? Absolution? A comeback? Justice?" Harlan spat, close enough for whiskey breath to waft. "You ruined me, jobless. Blackballed. My uncle cut me off because of your lies." His date fidgeted, sensing the storm. Matthew's laugh was steel. "Lies? You documented your own hate." The slap was the tip. Ask the dozen staff you terrorized. Phones emerged. Recording. The gala teetered on viral precipice. Ryan's hand clenched Matthew's. A lifeline. Walk away, man. Before you dig deeper. But Harlan lunged. Not with fists. But words. Venomous. He's using you, kid. Parade gay love for headlines. Then what? Dumps you for the next cause. Doubt flickered in Ryan's eyes. Brief as a shadow, but enough to twist Matthew's gut. Betrayal's echo. From Victor. Now this poison. Enough. Elena materialized. Security in tow. Out. Or charges. Harlan resisted, shouting as they dragged him. Fraud. All of it. But the doors swallowed him, leaving stunned silence. Matthew exhaled, turning to Ryan. You okay? The question hung. Ryan searched his face, thumb brushing jaw. Yeah. It's close. Old insecurities. His voice cracked, revealing cracks. Ryan's ex. A high society ghost who'd left for discretion. Scars Matthew had kissed away in moonlit confessions. They slipped to a balcony overlooking Central Park. Autumn leaves a fiery carpet below. City lights twinkled like conspirators. He's wrong, Matthew said, pulling Ryan close, noses brushing. You're my everything, not a prop. Ryan's kiss was answer. Deep, anchoring, hands fisting velvet as tongues danced. Heat built, urgent against stone balustrades, but they broke apart, breathless. Prove it later, Ryan teased, eyes dark with promise. Back inside, the auction soared. Matthew's garage-era sketchbook fetched a record, symbol of origins. Speeches followed. Elena's fiery ode to resilience. Victor's humble nod to reform. Then Matthew's turn. Microphone heavy as he scanned the room. Ryan's gaze his North Star. Verve isn't fabric, he began, voice carrying like a vow. It's flesh and bone, the ache of hidden kisses, the thrill of hands held in daylight. Greg Harlan saw deviance. I see divinity. And Ryan, he extended a hand, pulling him on stage. The crowd, Angie. You taught me love isn't hidden. Just worn proudly, like our best design. Applause thundered, but tears stung Matthew's eyes as Ryan whispered. Sap, offstage. In a shadowed alcove. They claimed privacy. Kisses turning carnal. Ryan's thigh pressing between legs. Gasps muffled against necks. It was stolen fire. Climax whispered in the din. But post-gala glow faded with morning emails. Harlan's final gambit. A tell-all blog. Twisting truths into tabloid fodder. Ellis's empire. Built on blackmail and bedrooms. Lies about affairs. Embezzlement. Ryan as kept man. Shares dipped again. Co-op jitters rising. Matthew stormed the war room, a sunlit conference via Zoom, Ryan sketching countermeasures on a notepad. Counter-narrative, Elena proposed. Interviews your love story. Front and center. Risky, Victor cautioned. Exposes Ryan. Ryan shrugged, tossing the pad. I'm game. Authenticity sells. The piece dropped in the New Yorker, threads of us, intimate, unflinching. Photos of their garden. Quotes from first dates. The slap scar as catalyst. Harlan's blog imploded under fact checks. Lawsuits from staff buried him in legal quicksand. Yet conflict peaked personally. Late one night, Ryan paced their bedroom, post-article jitters manifesting. What if it's too much? The glare, fans at our door. Questions about the gay billionaire's boy toy. Matthew rose from bed, crossing to him, hands framing face. You're my partner. Equal. If it's too much, we pivot, quiet life. Verve on autopilot. Ryan deflated, melting into embrace. Nah. I chose this, you eyes wide. Their lovemaking was tender that night. Exploratory, Ryan topping for once. Slow thrusts building to shattering release. Affirmations gasped in ears. Renewal followed. Verve's first co-op dividend checks mailed. Staff tears of joy viral. Matthew and Ryan escape to the Catskills. Cabin nestled in pines. Ryan's designs blooming around a fire pit. Evenings by the hearth. Bodies entwined. Stories swapped. Matthew's youth evading conversion camps. Ryan's coming out amid Irish Catholic guilt. But humanism whispered. A letter arrived. Harlan's. From rehab. Hit bottom. Your mercy, unearned. Trying to change. Matthew read it aloud to Ryan. Flames crackling. Burn it or reply? Reply, Ryan said. Grace multiplies. Matthew did brief. No absolution, but an offer. Therapy voucher via Verve's new fund. No response came, but peace settled. As winter loomed, Verve's holiday line launched. Coats for the unhoused. Proceeds to shelters. Matthew and Ryan modeled in the campaign. Hands linked in snow-dusted streets. The slap a distant memory. Yet climax's aftershock lingered in quiet moments. Love's depth tested and true. Winter blanketed New York in indifferent white. But Verve's holiday windows glowed like defiant beacons. Mannequins in fur-trimmed capes clutching rainbow mittens. Tags reading warmth for all. Matthew stood before the flagship's display. Ryan's arm looped through his. Steam from street vendors curling around them like conspiratorial fog. 6 months since the slap. The city had moved on, scandal cycling like seasons, but the scar on Matthew's cheek, faint as a whisper, reminded him change was etched, not erased. Beautiful, Ryan said, not of the windows, but of him. Hazel eyes reflecting twinkling lights. They'd spent the morning volunteering at a queer youth center. Ryan leading a gardening workshop while Matthew sketched fashion dreams with wide-eyed teens. It was their rhythm now. Empire balanced with earth. Boardrooms with backpacks of donated coats. Matthew turned. Snowflakes catching in Ryan's auburn curls. You make it so. Their kiss was soft. Unhurried. Ignoring the occasional stare. No slaps came. Instead, cheers from passers-by. A barista comping their coffees with a wink. Verve's transformation had rippled. Copycat policies in competitors. Harlan's name synonymous with cautionary tales in HR seminars. Back in the brownstone, holiday lights strung across beams. They shed coats amid laughter. Cocoa mugs steaming on the mantel. Ryan pulled Matthew to the rug by the tree. Ornaments glinting. A silver needle for Verve's birth. A tiny shovel for Ryan's first garden. Gifts, Ryan teased, but his eyes held deeper intent. Matthew fetched a slim box from under branches, wrapping paper crisp. Inside, a leather-bound journal. Pages seeded with Ryan's sketches, their future. A Verve atelier in the cabin, hybrid designs of couture and conservation. For our next chapter, Matthew said, voice thick. Ryan's turn. A simple band, platinum etched with coordinates of their first kiss. Not marriage yet, but promise. Whatever storms. Tears pricked. Matthew slid it on, fingers trembling. Yes, they made love by firelight. Bodies a symphony of give and take. Ryan's weight grounding. Matthew's arches yielding. Climaxes merging in wordless poetry. After, tangled in quilts, Ryan traced the ring. Humanistic ending. Huh? Not tragic, but real. Matthew hummed agreement, but sleep brought dreams of fractures. Harlan's face morphing into Victor's, then his father's, disapproval eternal. Waking to Ryan's snores, he slipped downstairs, brewing tea as dawn crept. The empire thrived, co-op thriving, expansions greenlit, but personal humanism beckoned, forgiving self, fully. A call from Elena shattered quiet. Harlan's out of rehab. Wants a meeting apology, face to face. Your call. Matthew hesitated, steam curling like doubt. Ryan stirred above, patting down in boxers, sensing turmoil. Him. Thinks closure heals. Matthew's voice wavered. Or traps. Ryan poured tea, sitting close. Go. But I'm there. No more solos. The meeting was neutral ground. A quiet cafe in neutral Brooklyn. Snow drifting past fogged windows. Harlan arrived shrunken. Scrubs under coat. Eyes clear but haunted. No entourage. Just a man. Broken open. Matt. Can I call you that? Thanks for coming. Matthew nodded curtly. Ryan a wall at his side. Speak. Harlan exhaled. Hands wringing napkin shreds. Rehab stripped me bare. Bigot dad. Repressed everything, hate was easier than fear. The slap? Panic? Seeing you happy. What I couldn't be. Tears fell. Unashamed. Ruined lives, yours, mine. Sorry doesn't cut it, but it start. If Verve hires counselors, I'd volunteer. Payback. Ryan tensed, but Matthew searched Harlan's face. Echoes of his own buried shame. Actions. Not words. But doors cracked. He stood, offering hand. Not slap, but bridge. Harlan took it, grip weak but earnest. Outside, snow swirled thicker. Ryan pulling Matthew under awning. Mercy again. You're something. Learning from you. Their embrace was fierce. Lips meeting in flurry. Cold cheeks warming. Betrayal's cycle broken. Not erased, but evolved. Spring thawed the city. Verve's lines blooming with eco-fabrics. Ryan's gardens integrated into storescapes. Living walls of lavender and lavender-hued silks. They married quietly in the Catskills. Under dogwoods. Elena officiating. Victor toasting with scotch-free soda. Vows exchanged ringside. In conflicts and climaxes. I choose you. Honeymoon in Tuscany. Vineyards rolling like bolts of cloth. They wandered cobbled streets. Hands linked. Bodies exploring villa sheets with lazy abandon. No empires intruded. Just love, deep as roots. Back home, Verve hit milestones. Billion in sales. Scholarships for 1,000 queer artists. Harlan, a footnote counseling at a shelter. Quiet amends. Matthew visited once. Sharing coffee. Stories of fathers lost and found. Human connection. Fragile thread. Years folded. Ryan's firm designing Verve parks. Their brownstone echoing with laughter from adopted twins. Foster kids turned family. Brown skin and boundless curiosity. Matthew retired oversight. Mentoring from gardens. His slap scar faded to invisibility. On a summer eve. Porch swing creaking. Ryan's head on shoulder. Kids chasing fireflies. Matthew reflected. The slap hadn't broken. It built. Romance wasn't fairy tale, but forge. Dramatic flames tempering emotional steel. Romantic sparks igniting humanistic hearths. Best life, Ryan murmured, fingers laced. The only one, kiss sealed it, eternal as New York's pulse. In the empire's shadow, two men wove their thread, unslapped, unbroken, profoundly alive.